Welcome to Snipisode 16 of the Daily Dose of DMC podcast. Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2023, and I'm your host, HK. Good morning, all you beautiful people, and welcome back to the Daily Dose of DMC. It is another beautiful Monday, the start of another beautiful week for all of us, and I really hope you guys had an amazing weekend. I just want to quickly share something. My weekend was fantastic. However, Saturday was just one of those days. I'm sure we all have these days, but for me, it was just one of those days. Everything that we had planned and everything that we wanted to do, somehow it just didn't come together that way. It was becoming really frustrating. Things from our car to my son's bike to our electricity in the evening, the things we had planned to do during the course of the day that didn't work out and whatnot. But it was just one of those days. And then my wife, oddly enough, throughout the course of the day, she just kept reminding me about, is it really worth it? Pointing back to my Snipisode, and because she had already listened to that. And in the evening, we're sitting there, we got home, and the electricity was down. So we made a candlelight dinner, a forced candlelight dinner, and the kids were already in bed. They already had dinner, and we sat there. She played a couple snips of my Snipisode 14, which is about frustrations. And we just sat there and we just started laughing, going through the course of the day, and everything just came together at that point. And, but it was just odd. But it was, like I said, good weekend nonetheless. Hence, today, to kick off the week, I thought to myself, let's talk about procrastination. I just want to divulge some thoughts on tackling procrastination. So let's kick off by looking at the definition, the dictionary definition of procrastination, which is procrastination is the act of delaying or postponing tasks or responsibilities. That's it. That's what it is. You can Google it, search it, whatever you want to do, look it up in a classical dictionary. But that's procrastination is, it's the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve here with the daily dose. It's the exact opposite of the M, which is motivation. And it's just simply, it can be manifested in various ways. So whether you're trying to avoid starting a project at work or in school, you're putting off to complete a task that you've got in front of you just because it doesn't get you excited, or you're constantly making some kind of excuse for not getting something done, like a chore at home, washing dishes or doing the laundry, whatever it may be. And we're all guilty of this, myself included, on a continual basis. In the past, I've always been I'm a go-getter, but at the same time, there's things that don't excite me, and I'll tend to procrastinate on those, especially during like my college years or my school years. I love learning, I love reading, I love all that kind of stuff, but I was never that excited for studying for a certain exam or for certain subjects, more so on others than some. But I think we're all like that. And there's actually a study that shows that a majority, I think it's something like 80-90% of people are procrastinators. So that's just instilled in us as well. It's not that we don't have, like I said, from my personal example, I'm a go-getter as well, but that doesn't mean that we don't have that willpower, that you or I don't have that willpower or a drive or a focus. It has nothing to do with our abilities to get something done. But the problem is, that's how we play it out in our cinemas, in our heads, and we beat ourselves up for that. However, I really think that and this is something that I've learned over the years, is that we're looking at procrastination from a wrong viewpoint. It's not a trait or some kind of sign of motivation. It's how we're approaching that thing to what we're procrastinating from, and I'll talk to that in just a little bit. So, like I've mentioned, there are a couple causes or several causes I want all of us to be aware of, and I've noted them down here, including fear of failure, perfectionism, lack of motivation, distractions in general, the lack of structure, unclear goals, impulsivity, you have difficulty with time management or the inability to prioritize tasks. That list could go on, but those are just some common causes that I've listed. And I really think that procrastination, talking from experience, really can have negative effects on both your mental and your physical health, on a lot of other things as well, like relationships or your career at work, your general overall well-being. Because ultimately what it is, it's stress in your mind. It's just stress. It's anxiety and this guilt, and that ultimately leads to this decreased productivity and poor performance and even missing opportunities because we procrastinate. Like I said, I think motivation is the exact opposite of procrastination. And there are a lot of people out there. Guys, just go on YouTube, search for some videos or whatnot. There's a lot of material on this as well. So that leads me to my second point that I've written down, and that is understanding procrastination. And what I basically did is that list that I just gave you, I broke that down into 3 areas to understand procrastination. So let's kick off with the first one, which I think is psychological factors. That includes the fear of failure. So procrastination is driven by that fear of not being able to meet your own expectations, or simply that fear of failure. That's why I think a lot of people don't achieve their full potential, because so many people are afraid to fail. They're afraid to fail in school. They're afraid to fail at work or in their careers and disappoint people. They're so afraid to start a business because it might seem like they're trying to climb a mountain which they believe they won't ever be able to climb. And that leads to these feelings of inadequacy and that belief that you're not capable of completing something. That's it. We're running that. The second one I pointed out was perfectionism. Some people, I know there's a couple people out there, and actually I know some people that are very their perfectionism drives their work, but that can also lead to procrastination because they're trying to avoid that possibility of not meeting their own high standards. And then lastly, that lack of motivation is because you're not interested in a task. This is something that comes in myself very often. I find it very difficult to start or drive forward with a specific task when I'm not really motivated, and that's just natural. So those are psychological factors. Then the second one is environmental. So that list that I gave you, that includes distractions. We're all distracted by social media. Bing, our phone pops up with another notification. The internet in general, with the news and being online 24/7, or just whatever other activities there are, we just get sidetracked and we get put off in actually doing that task we need to do. That's distractions. The second one was lack of structure. We don't have a clear plan. There's no real structure in place. This is how a lot of us, we aren't really taught from the ground up. As children, and I speak of this experience, out of experience, if you're a parent, this is something I really encourage you to think about. We tell our children to put something away. Clean up your room. Put that away. However, I find that a majority of parents don't teach their children where to put the things. You can't just... We as adults know. But children, especially in the first couple of years of their life, where they're still in this theta wave, they still look at the world very differently. So we need to teach that. Think about that. So, and that leads into procrastination down the road, because you don't really have a clear plan. There's no structure in place. It's challenging to know how to start or how to prioritize tasks. So that lack of structure. It could also be unclear goals, which I mentioned before. The goals are unclear. They're not real. They're not realistic. It's difficult to know how to approach it or how to move forward or what to focus on. So those are the environmental factors. And ultimately, I think you can classify that into behavioral factors, which is that impulsivity. So procrastination is just driven by impulsivity, where you just, on the short term, you want pleasure over actually achieving your long-term goals. Secondly, difficulty with time management. So maybe you're an individual who you can't really manage your time very well because you don't know how to prioritize tasks or how to use your time efficiently. You can't just say, oh, okay, I'm going to watch a 20-minute episode and then I'm going to start working on my homework or whatever, my project at work, but ultimately you end up watching like 3 hours and binge watching some kind of Netflix episode just because you're interested and you're putting off what you actually need to do. And ultimately it's that inability to prioritize tasks. You don't understand, you don't have that ability to prioritize them. It's difficult to know what to focus on, when to focus on it, and that just leads to procrastination. However, ultimately, and there's a lot of people out there like Mel Robbins and David Allen and Jordan B. Peterson. There's a lot of people out there who talk about this topic as well from various viewpoints: psychological, productivity, science. And I find it very interesting. Mel Robbins points out that it's ultimately just a habit. Procrastination is just a habit that needs to be broken. And I would have to agree with her to a certain extent, because it's just you have this trigger, you have a pattern, and then you have a reward. The trigger is stress, the pattern is you're trying to avoid doing something, and the reward is stress relief. So that leads me into the next topic that I have written down, and that is, how do we overcome procrastination? And I've noted down 5 points. Ultimately, it is 6, but I really just want to focus on the first 5, because that's my personal strategy and how I've learned to really overcome procrastination over the years and really tackle things head on. And just to point out, like from what I said earlier about these people, like Mel Robbins has just become aware of the stress. You got to interrupt that habit. Be conscious of the motivation behind it, basically. Jordan Peterson, a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, says you need to understand why you do something or why you don't. Because, ultimately doing nothing is easy. So in order to not to procrastinate, you got to know that what you're doing or what you're about to do is worthwhile. There's various strategies and things out there. If you've read David Allen, who's a guru on productivity, you'll know about his 2-minute rule, just doing something for 2 minutes. If it can be done in under 2 minutes, get that task done. But there's a lot of things out there. Go ahead, do that yourself. But I just want to share my 5 points. So first is setting clear and achievable goals. Very simple. You need to set a clear and achievable goal. That's what's gonna help you focus to work towards that specific outcome. And I really gotta agree with Jordan Peterson on this one, because he talks about, in one of his lectures that I've watched, is about microprocesses, which leads me to my second point, which is creating a plan of action. So once you've set those clear and achievable goals for that specific task you're procrastinating on, or you think you might procrastinate on, set that clear plan of action, breaking down that task into just smaller steps. And you've heard me talk about that in previous Snipisodes a lot as well. And then try to set deadlines for that. So one thing I did is, for example, in school or when I'm studying, rather than say, okay, I'm going to sit down and take a large chunk of 3 or 4 hours and just focus on this, I broke it down and said, okay, my deadline is day X. If I can do so much on the following 20 days that lead up to that, those are the small tasks, and each time I accomplish one, you get a reward. Yeah, so you're basically trying to create a new habit, and doing that regularly will help you eliminate procrastination for several other aspects of your life as well. So just break it down into smaller tasks and make it feel more manageable. And if you add, like I said, that's let me just give you an example off the top of my head. So writing a paper. So how do you do that? First you got to choose a topic, then you do your initial research, make an outline of that. Then you start off by writing the introduction. Then you would write each of the body paragraphs. After you've done that, go back, start editing. Then you proofread. You edit each of those sections, and then ultimately you finalize, and then, ta-da, you're finished, submit the paper. All those things, you can do that for whatever, for planning a vacation, for learning a new skill. Just break it down into smaller steps and help it be more manageable. Next, number 3 is prioritize the tasks. Focus on the most important ones, or the most urgent ones, once you've kind of broken down that list from the previous step, and work with that. So whatever you do, I like doing to-do lists. Yeah, there's arguably lots of ways to do this, but I like doing to-do lists. I break down all my tasks, like I said, and then I prioritize them with colors and whatnot based on, their importance, their urgency, and whatnot. But you can do a lot of different methods. You could do the Eisenhower matrix. You could do the ABC method. You could do by deadline, whatever. Just be flexible. There's lots of ways to do this, but just focus on the most important and urgent ones first, and that's going to help you to manage your time and energy more efficiently and more productively. And then what's very important is eliminating distractions. Distractions in today's day and age are all over the place. You got to eliminate the distractions. That's your phone, your social media, your emails, whatever it may be. You can, and there's lots of ways to do this. You can use an app on your phone. You can turn off all your notifications. You can create some kind of, dedicated workspace somewhere where you're free of all those distractions. Use headphones, listen to some kind of music you enjoy listening to while you're studying or getting some work done. Remember, always take short breaks, those kind of things. Also with friends and family, set boundaries, turn your phone off so you're not distracted. All these different things you can do to eliminate those distractions. Next is hold yourself accountable. Make your, like I said, when I say, okay, there's that deadline, I got 20 days up to that, and each day I make sure to knock off my to-do list and say check, 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 and reward myself for doing so. And then, like I said, those are the 5 that that have helped me to overcome procrastinating. And then ultimately, what you can add to that is, ask somebody to keep yourself accountable. You hear me say that a lot in the Snipisodes, is accountability, seeking support from others. If you really struggle with procrastination and that kind of thing, and it's really impacting your life to that extent, then ask someone to help you. Because ultimately, if you find that everything is not worthwhile, like Jordan Peterson says, you're just going to ultimately have just misery and suffering. So ask someone to help you, either help you develop a strategy, or help you in your walk on completing your tasks, whatever that may be. So those are my 5 steps that I've done over the past years now to really move forward on a lot of my things. I hope they've kind of helped you guys. Remember, procrastination is simply the opposite of what we're discussing here, the act of delaying or postponing tasks. It has a lot of negative effects. I encourage you guys to try to not put off tasks. Let's do that this whole week as we kick off this Monday. And remember, things take time and effort. Effort. But set those clear goals, make them achievable, create your plan of action, put in those small bite-sized tasks, eliminate distractions, hold yourself accountable, and then you're going to achieve it. Let's do this together, guys. That being said, stay dedicated, motivated, committed, all day, every day.